right? Because my youngest has a presentation that he had to put together, and he is unlike his mother. He is very anxious about talking to people and stuff. So he was supposed to do it on Tuesday, but as the kids have been doing it longer, it's been dragging out. So like his anxiousness every morning keeps it up. So anyway, he didn't came home again yesterday and didn't do it. So last night at bedtime, I was like, "Mommy has to present tomorrow too." He's like, "That's fine." And I'm like, and then I was like, "But I'm so nervous." And he's like, "Just cancel." All right, so we'll be short and we're a small group. For anyone who doesn't know me, I was gonna give a big spiel, but I feel like everybody knows me. I'm Susan Young. I've been licensed since 2005. I was with a previous company before Kevin and Ronnie started KW, so I am a KW Select OG. I also always remember when we opened Keller Williams because that was the year my oldest was born, so that was 2010. So yeah, I'm in my 18th or 19th year, and on my bucket list was to do my broker course. And I was going to do that by the time my youngest went to school, and then COVID hit in the world. So anyway, I took my broker course a little over 2 years ago. And then, as you all know, because you know my phone number, the position came opened and Melissa and Ann interviewed me. And so I've been a broker. It's 2 years next month. So I would tell you from 16 years previous, and then those 2 years, oh boy, have I learned a lot. You guys have some good questions. So I've been asked to instruct Win the Seller. I would tell you, like, I mean, again, I've done this for 18 years. I never consider myself an expert at anything. However, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm a learning geek. So like I have done all of Keller Williams classes. I've done them all like several times. Like, although I joke about wanting to go to Vegas to get away from my family, family reunion is my favorite thing. It's like learning on steroids. And I tell the story, the first year I had gone was 2012. We went to Florida, and we have like there, it's sessions, and then you have like an office dinner, and then we have KW awards, and then you have Red Bash. So it's just go, go, go. Anyway, I remember it was like the second last day or something, and Jerry and Annette were like, "Okay, well, we're gonna take everyone to Disney." And I was like, "What? There's learning sessions." I'm like, "I am not going to Disney. I came to Florida to learn." And they're like, "Okay." So everyone went to Disney but me. So I feel like I know the stuff. So I mean, I'll give you my spiel. What I also learned about myself, especially during COVID, because I know some of you got in at COVID or just after. That was an insane time. So even now when I'm speaking to clients, I always say, if you suck 3 years out, 2020 to 2023, like take that out at the history, like we've swung back, the pendulum has swung back to the way it was. That was an insane time, and I didn't like it, to be honest with you. And I saw the burnout of what was happening and what people were doing. Like the public perceives it as, oh, so easy. Like you just put a house, I always joke with everybody now as a broker when you call, I say, everyone thinks we put a for sale sign on the front lawn and we make $1 million until you actually get in the business and realize like there's a lot of, I would say the biggest thing that I think you need in real estate is grit. I really do. Like to keep going, because it's a roller coaster ride, right? So I consider myself now, when I look back at the last 4 years, I'm also a cherry picker. So I'm very particular about who I work with. So I feel like sometimes I'm given, and they talk about in my notes, like when, as you guys have learned about like imposter syndrome and like, you know, thinking that you can't do it and stuff. So I want to preface that, like, I think I know stuff, but I also am like, I would tell you I'm not the best lister. Like, you know, my business, like Chris and I, so my husband has his real estate license. Like he's been in, I've been 18, so he's 17 years. Um, like we do business that keeps us comfortable. Now, that being said, I formed a team last year and I'm gonna probably ramp things up a bit, but from a different perspective, from this perspective, like of this is where I find my joy. My joy is helping and teaching and learning and guiding. And so that's my 2 cents and then some of where I come from. So I would tell you that I can't come in here and say to you, I am win the sellers because I do 48 listing appointments and I get 45 of them a year. You know, I'm an average of I do 20 ends on average, used to be 20 to 25. Now sometimes it's 15 to 20. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. So my goal is again, so let's make this more of an open format. Like I'll go through the stuff with you guys, and then if you have questions, you missed it, but I went through, looked at the slides before, but I went through them again last night, so I made notes. Anyway, I got my notes, which I never leave home without. So feel free to ask me questions. I can give you what I do, and I can also tell you, because I feel like I know best practices, but it's not necessarily, I'm giving that caveat of saying that necessarily that I do all best practices. That's the thing about real estate too, I feel, is you got to know your stuff, but then you have to, you've got to put your own spin on things. You've got to find what gives you joy, right? Like one thing about, I don't know if anyone, have you done the DISC program? Like the DISC system. I'm pretty good at reading people on where I think they are on the DISC. I can actually do that based on like how you call me and ask a broker question. Like I can, you know what I mean? Like I'm good at that. So I find that also helps, knowing and matching your seller or your client based on like and I use the word C, highly detailed. We have a highly detailed person in the room. She comes from a family of highly detailed people. She wants all the facts and all the extras that you can give, right? But like my husband was in the military, so he's a Marine systems engineer. So we've worked with a lot of military. I know when I'm working with an engineer, like it's just the questions that they have, right? It's like they need all of the information. Whereas a D personality, that direct to the point, they don't want you to come in and do a 2-hour listing presentation. They want you to come in, tell them how much you're putting the house on the market, give them the paperwork, you know, that stuff, and get out the door. So I find that is one of the best things that you can do when it comes to winning with sellers or winning with clients. Is recognizing who you're dealing with. And the other advice that I would say work on, which I still work on, because as you can tell, I can talk a lot, is that whole concept of I go in thinking I'm going to talk 25% of the time, they are going to talk 75% of the time. And again, sometimes it's 50-50, but ask questions, dig for information. Find out why they're selling. Find out, or even with buyers, ask questions. Because like, for instance, I've done a lot of military relocations. We always joke in our presentation, we're like, when we have the list of how you're doing things in our listing presentation, it says decide to sell. And then we joke with our military clients and we say, except you were told to sell, right? So my military clients are as motivated as they get, as they don't have a choice. They have to sell their house and they've got to move. There's no, well, if we get the right price or, you know, everything lines up like, so finding out people's motivation is huge. So you guys have done lots. It's funny because again, like I've been with KW, I said this is the 14th year. Ignite, I've done Ignite several times, but they keep revamping, which I think is cool, but keeping to, again, the basics. So I don't know who else has said this to you as far as instruction. I mean, I love Keller Williams, it's an American company, right? And then we're the Canadians. So I would say, you know, I'm more of a soft seller than I am like, let's go sign here. Sometimes I'm like, sign here, press hard. But you know, so a qualified seller is able, ready and willing to do business in the next 14 days. Like, that's great because that's, you know, someone getting on the market. But I think all of our goals as real estate professionals is to be nurturing and providing value and educating people. I think since Command has come into play, like the opportunities that you guys have is out of this world. Like that system, like if Sue's mother was here right now and she sat with us and gave us a 10-minute spiel of how real estate started and what she had to do. I mean, first of all, she would say it's a relationship business because that's for sure how your mom has done repeat business for 40 years. But the systems that we have in place now, and especially that Keller Williams has for you guys to take opportunity, it's amazing. Like, and I'm an old dog learning new tricks. Those are the things that I know I need to improve on. But like drip campaigns, right? Getting a contact, meeting at someone at the open house, and then keeping in touch with them. And even clients, like, because it used to be 5 to 7 years, now they say it's 7 to 9 years, an average of a seller selling again. Like, we shouldn't be ghosts to them between those 7 and 9 years, right? One of the things that I started doing a couple of years ago, because again, yeah, what you should do, best practices and what I do, but I use Homebeats for all my past clients. So I know that like on Command, it's supposed to be neighborhoods, but it's more Americanized. But I do Homebeats, which is through Paragon. So it's a monthly email that goes to your past client. You set it up, and it just shows them what's active and what's sold in their neighborhood. And let's be honest, 99% of the public, of the population, that's the information they want, right? They want to know what their neighbor got down the road. They want to know the activity, just even if they're not thinking about selling, just for them for a matter of knowing their home value. I think, and so that my past clients get that once a month for 12 times. So that's my 12 touches for them on that.
Do you find it's accurate?
Oh yeah.
Fairly accurate or really accurate?
Well, it's like, so, I mean, we're the only province that has a viewpoint, right? That shares that information, but it's coming from Paragon.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows like, I've got myself set up on it because I always do that, like, because I want to see but I like getting it. Sometimes I'm not always paying attention to everything that sells in my neighborhood, but when I get that, I go through it and I'm like, oh, this is what, because it shows the sale price and it shows what's active. So you just go in and you set it up as far as like 4 bedrooms, 2,000 square feet, like, and then they do a radius. So like I'm in a single family home, but I often get like the semis and townhouses in my neighborhood, but I'm like, still tells me what's going on in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right. And you'd be surprised. I mean, there are a lot of people that use Viewpoint, but there are a lot of people that don't, right? So they don't get that sold information when you're using realtor.ca.
there a training session on Paragon somewhere that we could like figure out how to use that?
I
Or
think,
is it?
so Paragon, everything we use now, like web forms, Paragon, there are videos and training sessions up the wazoo. Well, who was it? I think it was Andrew Perkins was using it. And then I saw a training session and Maggie McGilvery had mentioned it and I had looked into it, but I hadn't, and I was like, and then I talked to Phil Evans was using it and I was like, I gotta get on. So I signed up for a webinar with them and they went through it with us. It's not Black Knight, it's through Paragon. I think I pay $199 a year, gets charged to my card. And I've got about 75 to 90 contacts set up on it. To me, $200 for someone to do the work for me is, I'll pay that all day long.
I've started using it as well recently,
Yeah.
and there were past clients yet, so I'm not saying past clients, but people that I.
Oh, yeah, so not only pass, you're right, like, I've had made friends in my neighborhood that ask me about real estate all the time.
Yeah.
So I set them up on it, so that they're
Yeah,
getting, and it's got my logo and it's coming from me and it's branded and stuff like
I
that.
started reaching out to my sphere and just using that as a touch point as well, saying, are
Definitely.
you interested in getting this information? Because a lot of people are.
Yes, I would say there's a lot of, you're gonna get more yeses on that than you are no, for sure.
Different from Club Center then.
It isn't, it's,
It
they're,
Through Cloud CMS.
yeah, it's the same.
Oh,
Now, again, I'm not going into detail as far as like doing the big cloud CMAs and stuff like that, but it's the same system. Yeah, it's very, and if we have time, I can even show you what it looks like.
so it's just another alternative to
It's really simple.
Cloud CMA.
Yeah, but it's automated, right? Like, again, that's my warm and fuzzy. If I set it up once and it just
It
does
just-
something for me.
So same as Collab then, it's just another.
Yes, so collab of setting up searches for your clients of things that come available, this would be sold too.
Goals.
So it's just
Okay.
giving an education on the market to past clients.
Right. Okay.
It's funny, I saw you had this triangle out, Maureen, because of the leads, listings and leverage. I don't know if anyone's listening to the MREA podcast. It's my new fave. So I've listened to all of them, because I'm a big Jason Abrams fan. But I would tell you, the biggest thing that Keller Williams talks about when they talk about this triangle is like, and if you read the MREA to the book, like, why reinvent the wheel, right? People have been doing this for eons before us. And so start with the foundations, learn the basics and what you need, and then put your unique touch on things. Funny because the slideshow I have has all these funny notes. So let me go. Did I tell you that like technology is not my strong suit?
For that a few times.
Yeah. I make fun of my mother because she doesn't have internet or anything. And I'm like, I can get on Facebook on my phone and I can send you an email, but that's why. So Sue, keep this question limited to training sessions on tech. All our clients are amazing and we are grateful for them for choosing us. Therefore, we need to give them our best work and efforts. Sellers are special because they bring us listings. We've discussed this before. The basis of a great real estate business are leads, listings, and leverage. We love listings because they bring us not only a commission, but the ability to build a relationship for repeat and referral business. They bring us the best marketing opportunity in real estate, while they give us more control over our time. So I wrote down last night the notes I had, for instance, I would say to you, I remember, and I'm ballparking now, but I think they say an average listing for an agent is 7 to 9 hours of your time. And an average buyer is like 24 to 28 hours, right? So what listings allow you, I remember going to a training in Toronto, Glenn McQueenie had done a training. And I remember talking to Ontario agents, they're like, oh my God, you're so lucky that your properties sit on the market for like 2 and 3 and 4 months. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so great. But it does give you the opportunity to advertise, right? Putting your for sale sign on the front lawn. You know, I joke, you could query a lot of people as far as like, who did you use as an agent, right? And then what brokerage are they with? 9 times out of 10, they don't even know what brokerage you're with, right? But it's sometimes funny when you have your sign and then you have people who have similar signs. They're like, I see your signs all the time. I've had people say that to me. Really?
Right.
Um. My hair salon is calling me to make sure I can.
Yeah, sure.
So again, so when I say to you, they say you have more control over your time. And it's the per hour compensation for listings. It allows you volume. I'd be remiss in the broker in me to say to you, because one of the advantages to having a listing is the leads you can pick up from it, right? You know, and then when we talk about agency, so your contract and your agency is with the seller, right? So that's why in the meeting the other day, Anna talked about open houses and who's doing the open houses and who has agency and that type of thing. I have never been good with double ending in the sense that it doesn't make me feel comfortable. I can do it and I have done it. However, for me, I would rather give my undivided attention and fiduciary duties to my seller, right? So I have shown, you know, you can show your listing, you can, you know, be a, as I call it, a transaction facilitator. But you can't have the buyer as another client. They have to be a customer, right? So I've referred things for years. Like I give people leads and stuff. You know, now forming a larger team and stuff like that, I'll be able to do it differently, although you're the same person. So, but I would say to you, there's a lot of opportunities with listings. It's like, to me, that's as billboardy as I want to be, right? My sign on the front lawn of someone's house in the neighborhood. But that is, need people in your neighbors drive around and they're like, and that's why farming is a big deal, right? Because if you want to own a neighborhood, that's the best way to get known as far as having a sign on the front lawn. Properly marketing sellers listings, bring you more business. There's a line that I would often say to people is, I'm not looking to list your house, I'm looking to sell your house. So that's another thing when you talk about price strategies with sellers and stuff, you know, like if their house is a $500,000 house, but they want $700,000, sure, like people can take that listing, but are they going to sell it, right? So my belief is that our job as a realtor and as a professional is to set the expectations. I think that is the best thing that you can do for all of your clients. And Nikki Miller, I saw her do, I even saw it on social media. So Nikki Miller's she runs the One Thing podcast, but she did a training things. She said she used the words that the best things that you can say to a client or a potential client. And this is what is going to happen next. And I think that's genius, right? That even though you can have a client, a seller, for instance, that has sold 7 times, right? If you're talking to your client that you're setting the expectations, and this is how I'm going to do things, and this is what is happening next, and this is what we're going to do to get your house ready. You go over for your listing appointment, you talk about how you're having a stager come in, you know, what they need to do to the house, then you're going to have a photograph, the sign's going to go up, you know, and this is how showings are going to go. this is what's going to happen next, I feel is the best strategy that you can do, in my opinion. Seven step. This wasn't enough. I do want to talk about when it gets to, because the pre-listing is very interesting. So converting your A sellers. So they must have you guys talked about, like, it used to be called Mets and not Mets. Hairdresser is sick. What? No. I can't go to Vegas with Gray.
If it helps, I have a hairdresser at 1 o'clock.
What did you say? Say that again. So we're,
I said, if it helps, I have a hairdresser coming to my house at 1 o'clock.
oh, that was when my appointment is. Is her name Stephanie by any chance? Is she going to your house instead of meeting with me? This is, we talked about this, determine their motivation to sell, so you can speak to it. I find that that's huge. Like, again, I talked about my military clients, but finding out what, you know, we're downsizing, my husband has health issues and we need one level living, right? So you can leverage that when you're having conversations with your sellers, right? Remember you had mentioned that you wanted to sell because you need to get into one level living. Well, we've had 22 showings and we haven't had any offers. So, I would say we have to revisit the listing price based on what the market is telling us and what the market activity is telling us. So by asking questions, that's very important to find out what their motivation is. So pre-listing package. I have been using a pre-listing package. I want to talk about it because I know they talk about that. The pre-listing package, I would say to you, because you can build one in Command. It's the kind of like, here's who I am, here's what I do. I don't drop it off beforehand. Like, I know that they talk about it in here, and it is probably best practice that you send it over. The majority of my sellers are, my majority of my business is repeat and referral business. So I am not often dealing with a lot of strangers. However, depending on where your sphere is, what you're working, like if you're farming an area and you're getting sign calls or you're promoting social media and you're getting calls and you're setting up listing appointments, it may be something you want to do. It may be something like, as far as you drop your package off 2 days before, confirm your appointment, say, have a look over this, and I will be over at 7 o'clock on Friday evening, and please let me know if you have any questions in the meantime. I bring mine with me, and I go into the house, I build a bit of a rapport, I have conversation quickly with the seller. Now, again, based on, was it a referral that, like, I haven't met them yet versus someone I've known for a long time? And then I ask to have a look at the house. In here, they talk about how they say you should ask to put your stuff down at the kitchen or dining room table is what I do, because I want to come back and I'm going to do my presentation and I'm going to sit with them at a table. That's where my choice is as far as where I'd like to be. And then it says you can go and tour the house yourself. I don't mind when they come with me. I have my notebook. I let them talk about their house. I ask questions like, how long have you been here? Even though I know all this because I've looked it up on Property Online. It's like, so tell me about some of the renovations. Like, when did you do this, update this bathroom? And, oh, I see it's laminate downstairs. Has it always been like this? When did you redo the flooring? So I'm asking them questions because it's their house and they're proud of it, right? And so you know, and I'm like, oh, I really like this color and, you know, that type of thing. And then we go back to the table and that's when I sit down. I have a presentation that I do. However, I ask questions. So I'm like, and you know, we'll be talking and I find out about their motivation and why they're selling. And I'm like, I have a presentation. Would you like me to go through it? It'll take us about 15 minutes. And most people are like, yeah, yeah. And then I have people who are like, no, Susan, we just want to get to the paperwork. Let's do this. So the majority of the time, I actually don't have listing paperwork prepared. So we have this whole school of thought as far as the two-step process versus the one-step. And Jerry Murphy would tell you, Jerry Murphy has always done the two-step process. So he goes, does the consultation, views the house, but then he comes back for a second appointment to do the listing appointment, to actually do the paperwork, go through the numbers, that type of thing. Mine is usually, for me, it's an information gatherer and sharer, right? So I'm telling you about how the process is going to work, what I'm going to do. And I explain now, I often do have cut sheets and price points, but let's be honest, if you haven't been in someone's house, you don't know what it looks like. Like, is it immaculate? Is it a dive? And they have so much work that needs to be done. Like, that's going to affect your pricing strategy. So, and then I'm also, if I don't know this, like I'm gathering timelines. So for instance, if I'm dealing with military clients, I want to know if they've had their posting message yet. So often military are like, they're getting all of their ducks in a row and lining things up. So often when I'm coming over, they may not have their posting message yet. So they're like expecting that in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm like, all right, so we can work on getting the house prepared and, you know, I'm going to provide a stager and then we're going to have the house photographed, all that kind of stuff. So that helps me. Again, I'm gathering information that helps more with my timelines. And then typically how I do it is I tell them after I leave, while I'm leaving, I'm like, thank you so much. I'm going to work on some numbers and I'm going to get you a market analysis and you'll have that. I'll have that to you within the next 48 hours. You'll get an email from me. Please reach out if you have any questions. And then I have a spieled email that, you know, I typically copy and paste, and change tweaks to make it personalized, but it's like, thank you for showing me your home. This is, you know, please have a look at the comparables. This is where I think I always give a range. That's my thing. And depending on them, they might like, and it's usually I'm about a 10,000 range. And I can also get motivation of people based on, like I explained to people in my presentation, our goal is to get you the highest price in the least amount of time for the current market. I also explain a lot about the market, right? So it's not me who determines what you're going to get for your home. It's what the market is going to give. So at the end of the day, like what a buyer is willing to pay and what a seller is willing to accept is the market value of a house. End of story, right? Like, and again, depending on conversations, we can talk about COVID and like, I literally was saying, clients were like, well, you know, you go to a point and they're like, this is how the process is going to work. And we were typically kicking people out of their house for 48 to 72 hours. Because it was going to be a revolving door. And then I'm like, then we're going to take offers on Monday and I'm going to sit down with you on Monday after supper and we're going to look at the offers. Did I know if we were getting 2 offers, 6 offers, 12 offers, 20 offers? I didn't know that. Because I always say, I wish I had a real estate crystal ball. And when on the flip side, when I was working with buyers, they were like, well, what do you think we should write? That whole marketing strategy went out the window, right? Like we had clients that were coming here that were like, they were spending 100 to 120 over ask on each property that they were writing and not getting them. I was like, it's like a roll the dice and see where it gets you. But I'm always like, a buyer has this amount of money, right? And they need to see what it's going to get them. So when I explain that to sellers on the flip side, when we have people that are coming in, they are comparing your house to what is out there in that same price point, right? So the market's going to tell us if we're priced right for the current market. What sellers want from their agents? Price competitively, obviously, like, again, that's what you tell them. You're not looking to get them the lowest price for their house. That's not our goal. Help sellers market homes to potential buyers, help them within a specific time frame. I think that comes from an education standpoint, like, and again, setting the expectations and always saying it's the market. So pre-COVID, and now I've gone back to, like, so I do bi-weekly reports. You probably could do them weekly, but it's just me. But I send my clients, like, here's what has sold in the last 2 weeks. Here's anything that new has come on the market. You know, so I'm educating them to say, here's what's going on, right? And it's just, I feel like that's still part of the setting expectations, because then they can make educated decisions based on our pricing, based on what else is going on. Because, for instance, if you're one of 10 homes in that price point and none of the other 10 are selling, right? That said something. It's like, maybe my client isn't priced that off. It's just like, and this time of year, again, pull 2020 to 2023 out. November, December, January has always been typically the quietest times of year. That's when they have the least amount of buyers in the market and the least amount of inventory, but that's when the least activity is going on. You know, however, I always say that anyone who's looking at that time of year are serious buyers. If you've got a listing in December and you've got buyers coming to view it, those buyers are not tire kickers. They are motivated and ready to go, because the only people who bundle up in the snow and go out before 2 weeks before Christmas looking at houses are people who need to buy a house.
Can I ask you a question about
Yes.
your pricing? Do you find if you give someone a price range, they almost always go with the highest?
Nope, I don't. That's to me
Why?
a motivation. So I, like, for instance, and I, again, just because I have a lot of experience with military clients, often I'll have military clients that'll be like, pick the bottom of it because they're like, I want this done tomorrow.
Okay.
So really, let's be honest, since we know strategy, if my bottom price point is lower than market, then I'm typically gonna get a multi-offer situation anyway.
Right.
Right?
But isn't that, do you find for the most part under the $500,000 range?
Right.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
But that's not to say, like, I had a listing in August that I put on. And again, pricing strategies have been different, like, as far as pre-2020 but like, I gave my clients a number based on the sales on their street, and I gave them that range. And then they wanted to go even higher than my range. And I have a spiel for that, right? I'm like, sure, we can try it. We're going to try it for 14 days, see how to, but remember, you wanted to buy something and be in before school. And, you know, so I talk about their motivation. Anyway, we put it on, and we had one showing and I got one offer, and it was well over list price.
Wow.
But the buyer was an RCMP officer who was motivated and wanted also to be in a house before school started. He was transferred here. They wanted West Bedford. They wanted the school zones. And because there was little inventory from what we were compared to, they're like, this is where I would think this is where our price point, this is what we've looked at. This is the houses we've lost out on. Here's what we're willing to pay. And my guys were like, sign here. So it all depends on that, right?
Right.
Like, I have a condo on right now, which again, I was worried, like, I hate when a week goes by and I have nothing to tell them. although we have to talk to them, right? But I hate it. It's like, we did a price reduction last week. We haven't had any showings. And I'm just like, but I just have to go back to, these are past clients that I have bought and sold multiple houses for. So we had a house that they had way back when that sat for a long time, and then we had a COVID sale. They bought this condo, they spent 120 over ask in multiple offers, right? So now we're back to like, things are taking time. And so as long as I'm explaining that to them, like I said, I expect the activity, and and they knew this listing in November. But I would say that we've always said March is probably where we're gonna be. So March is next week, hopefully. 7 close to appointment tactics, show the benefits, take back close, negative, positive close. So one of the things I read in here, which I agree, these are the objections that they often talk about in your training. Often objections are just a question. Like, for instance, commission, right? What do you charge for commission? And you're like, well, we're a full service brokerage, so our brokerage policy is 5%. And I explained 2.5% or, goes to the cooperating brokerage, what we call to the street. And our office takes 2.5%. And I talk a breakdown of, then we have to pay taxes on that. I have to pay my office, they're like, will you do it for lower? And then here they just say, no, I won't. Right? So often people are so worked up about like, am I going to bend? Am I going to bend? Often it's not, I'm not going to list with you. It's just a question, right? And it's about your spiel of how you spiel. And my spiel means script. I just don't like the open script, right? But we all have scripts for everything in life. Like, my kids walk in the door after school. I'm like, how was your day? Fine. And I'm like, were there any aliens attacks at school today? Like, and they're like, no. I'm like, did you have a fire alarm? Like, I'm just trying to dig to see if I can get them, but we have spiels, right? Yeah, so when a question is asked, answer it. When an objection comes up, you can address it. I think when you provide value, people don't argue your value. That's how I feel. I would say personally, like, I feel like I always think like discount brokerages, they have to work on volume. If they're going to be doing things for very cheaply, right? They've got to work on volume. So one of my things would be on the commission question is like, if they say, well, I talked to someone else who was willing to do it for less. And I would say, well, if they were so quick to bend on their commission, are they going to be quick to bend on negotiating for you of what you're going to get for your home? And then I just ask that, like, and then they sit with it and they're like, oh, that's a good point.
Does that then set the expectation that they're gonna get full price or more, so to speak?
No, I don't think so. I just,
Do you think they'll come back?
I don't get pushback, to be honest with you. Again, this is me and who I work with. I don't get pushback on my commission a lot. For instance, like, again, if I'm dealing with military clients, which is now 4%, and our CMP clients is 4%. Back in the day, it used to be 5%, and then it was 4.5%, and then it was 4.4%, and then it went 4.25%, and now it's 4%. So, because I often think of it like, if I was to get pushback, I'm like, I'm going to do a really good job of helping you get your house sold, negotiating for you, advertising. Like, it's that concept of like, if you do a really good job and your boss comes in and says, hey, you did a really good job, I'd like to pay you less on your paycheck next week. You know what I mean? Like, there's value in what we do. Just ask anyone who has tried to sell their house on their own.
You mentioned the brokerage has a policy of 5%. Is Is that for all sales?
So I would
or
say,
all-
yeah, like, so I would say, we're not allowed to pollute on commissions, right? But a full service brokerage is not gonna say you can do things for 2%. So you're gonna take 1% and put 1% on the street. It used to be 2.5, and I often will do 2.5, but like, again, if it's a military or RCMP, I'm doing it for 4 now, because I have to. And it's the same thing with the banks, if you're working for banks or CMHC and you're doing repos, they set the standard. And I have, in the past, with the 5%, if I had a client who was selling and buying, I still would put 2.5 on the street, and then I would reduce my side 0.5%, so I would do it for 4.5. But the brokerage policy is like, again, you're gonna get a call from somebody if you say, I'm only putting $3,000 to the street.
Like, for example, can you negotiate to 4%?
I would say in this current state, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yes. But that's the spiel I usually use,
Yeah.
that's what I've been using, so even if you are doing it for 4 or 4.5, and they realize that the standard is 5. Yeah,
So we can say that it's a brokerage policy.
that's what I do, I'd say it's a brokerage, this is what my brokerage policy is, and it's this, you know, and I explain how things get paid, right? It goes to the
Right.
brokerage. Brokerage takes, because I explain about how I work, when I get pushback,
Right.
right? Some people won't even
Yeah.
ask you that.
Yeah.
I was naturally focused small. I would say the only thing when, because entrepreneurial, purposeful, the best thing that I would say is developing your systems. Like I have an email that I send once your property goes on the market. Now I tweaked it a little, but it's the same freaking email that I've been sending for 15 years. Thank you for listening. It used to say, thank you for listening with the Young Real Estate Team. Now it says with the McNeil Young Real Estate Group. Your house will appear on several websites. Here's our contact. The sign guy has been ordered. It's the same, like I literally copy and paste with, again, certain tweaks based on what it is. But I set the expectations, right? Here's the link to your house. I'm like, and I've attached a copy of your listing cut sheet. Please review. If you think anything needs to be changed, please let me know. I talked about in my spiel, I talked about showing time. I've set you up on an app on showing time. This is how you're gonna get, confirm your showings, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just setting the expectations. So what is happening next? But you get busy, right? And you've got 3 or 4 listings on the go, and when you've got systems in place, it's just easier, right? I would say just checklists are the best thing, right? And you can put them in command, but I hired a cyberbacker assistant at whenever, sometime of COVID, maybe before COVID. But I realized I had to document my systems. And then we started the mentorship program, and it was around the same time. And I was like, oh, this is really good, because now I have mentors. Because often for us as agents, we know what we need to do next. But because I always say, Andrew Perkins said to me, when he hired his first administrator, he said to me, Susan, you don't know how much we know until you have to tell somebody who doesn't know any of that. Like, for instance, me delegating to someone now to order up the sign, right? It was just one of those things that I always did. It was like, I put the job form into my sign guy and stuff. But when you've got your systems written down and your checklist, it just makes life easier. So I talk about command. Now, again, this is how old of a dinosaur I am. Like, at my original brokerage, there was file cabinets in the front office. And when you signed an amendment with a client, I had a copy of it and I take a copy, I go and pull out my file, I put it in and I put it there for the office to have. Like, and I say to people, like, command and opportunities, like, I've been using that since we've been able to do that. Anyone who doesn't want to use that or has resistance to that is crazy, because it literally pops up and says, here are all the things you need. Like, otherwise, you, for instance, I use the example of a signed PDS. If you have to search your emails from the ladies to see if you sent the signed PDFs, which is, again, before we had command, we used to send the files in. I'd send it electronically, but the office would print it and then they'd have their file, and then you'd get a list from Lynn or Joy that says, you're missing this, this, this. And now command, it's like, it's literally all there. It says signed PDFs. I'm like, oh crap, I gotta put that in. Right? Trade records. It just, having systems and organization just makes easier. And again, once I hit 40, I feel like my brain wasn't as smart as it used to be. So having systems like that just make our life much easier. And it has helped for training. Like when I had mentees, it would be like, oh, you need to do this, this, and this, and this. It just makes the world a better place, in my opinion. Highly detailed person probably agrees with that, right?
Yeah, I've worked for several agents over the years.
I know.
And all of them have different systems. And I set up the systems for some of them. But I haven't, funny enough, I haven't set it up myself. So, but I'd have a file on my desktop of this agent, and I'd have all their letters that I emailed to their clients, like, and like, you know, the standard emails.
Yeah.
So just cut and paste, and it was so much easier.
Yeah. Plus, again, depending on, in that situation where you're working with different agents, you want to make sure that you did all the things. Like if 3
Exactly.
agents had 3 new listings and you're responsible for ordering the signs up,
Yeah,
like
we'll
having
have
the
to check multiple
checklist.
checklists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just really good. So we talked about the pre-listing goals. I think a pre-listing package is good. And again, I told you that I don't drop it off beforehand. I know there are people that have it couriered over and stuff, but I like to have something that I leave behind for them too. So if I'm competing, or if I don't know if I have the listing, they have something left behind that was tangible from me, and it looks good, you know, and we use it from command, it's personalized, we bind it, and then it's left, and they can at least have something that tells about us. I also do a listing presentation, like I do that on the iPad. Again, it's just the standard, like setting the expectations of this is how the process is gonna work, this is how we price. Again, I talk a lot about the market, right? The market, and as far as, because I have to, that's, again, let's say we're talking about not a $500,000 listing, but an $800,000 listing. So the last 6 months, here's been the average days on market. And I'm like, you know, we've got to get priced according, so I can always blame the market. And it's not me that I mucked up my pricing strategy. This is what the market is telling us. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, like, because again, Keller Williams has all of this stuff that you can customize, and it's so easy, it's click and drop, and it looks good. So that's what they talked about. So the best practice for them is deliver your pre-listing packet, confirm your appointment, date and time, ensure all decision makers attend. I'm a huge believer in this. Like, if I'm doing a listing appointment, I want to know, and first of all, I can know because I can look on property online of who the house is registered for, like who, right? But I'm not meeting with just one spouse, like, to get an okay. I want decision makers, if there's 2 of them, in the room. You're listening, and I told you how I do it. Again, I ask them to put, you know, can I put myself on the kitchen table or it's the dining room table? I ask to do my walkthrough through the house. And often when I come back to the table, then like, if they don't come with me, they're like, do you want us to come? I'm like, it's up to you. First of all, I've walked through 5,000 houses. I know how to get through a house, right? But if they wanna come and I wanna do that to build rapport, totally cool. But that's just me. I'm a relational person. So I like, cause then again, I have my notebook and I ask questions. And I know they probably have, you guys have been learning about like pre-listing appointment sheets and stuff like that. I'm not the best person to give you guidance on like how many cold calls I made today and how many appointments I got out of it. Create a great impression to build the seller's confidence in you as the real estate agent of choice. Share your price recommendation, the initial list price for their property and reasoning behind it. Again, I do that verbally, I do that in an email, and my listing presentation talked about it because again, my bi-weekly, I would say if you're gonna be a keener, you should probably do them weekly, but I'm not a keener. Like saying to them, this is what has listed in the market. It's like, so this is essentially, if the house down the street comes on for the same price point or $10,000, that's your direct competition. So telling them that, because you might not have clients who are on B1, but you might have clients that are on it incessantly, like every day at work, 40 times. But I still want to be the person who gives them the information.
How do you market the house now? Like, I know under 500, you're not doing a whole lot of marketing other than, you know, getting some good photos and prepping the listing. How would you market a higher end home in this? Like, now, what is the standard?
This is being recorded, so I will tell you, I am going to push back on anybody that says, I did an amazing quality video walkthrough of the house and that's what sold the house. Like, if I lose out against a listing of competition with somebody and they say, I have 7,000 Instagram followers and I'm gonna do a video every time, for sure they're gonna beat me. They are, because I'm not, now, I'm going to have the house staged professionally. I'm gonna have it photographed. But it's all about the price. That's what sells a house. It's pricing it accordingly, like in the current market, and then negotiating, right? And I have to go back to the setting the expectations. When I'm talking to sellers, I'm like feeling them out. I'm asking them questions. Like, well, my neighbor got $895,000. I'm like, yes, here's the number, but that was in May of 2022, like hottest time possible, right? And they listed for $499, but they got $679, or you know what I mean? Like showing them that, because it was never a thing before COVID, pre-COVID. I looked at the last 12 months back as far as competition, right? And market report. Now I literally have to look at the month of when it sold, because even during COVID, like whether it sold in February, March versus June and July, like June and July weren't as hot. Like you weren't getting as many multiple offers. And then like I had several houses on my street that were listed and actually came off and they put tenants in them because they weren't selling, right? So those things are important as far as, so it's setting the expectation. I think if you provide value and you sound like you know what you're talking about, then that's gonna build the confidence for the seller for getting the job done. That's my 2 cents. How the listing presentations meet sellers' needs and wants. Again, we've talked about this. It's you're asking questions, you're finding out their motivation, right? Finding out their needs, again, I still think that's important, but if I've got a house that I think, it can go on for $499 and we may get over asked for it, they say to me, I need $700,000 to pay off all my debts, again, I'm gonna educate them, point them to the numbers. Like those goals might not be realistic, right? And then am I gonna take this listing appointment? Like a listing?
So do you, I may have missed something you said. This question might not be relevant now, but do you talk to your sellers about what debts they have to pay and if there's gonna be enough left over?
If Chad McLeod was teaching this class or Ann De Silva was teaching this class, they are numbers people. They go, like, they give sheets, they talk about. We're all different, right?
Yeah.
Like, I am just, I can't change what they have to pay, right?
Right.
Like, it's not, to me, that sale price, like, and the buyer doesn't give a shit how many credit card debts you have, like, as a seller, and you know, that type of thing.
List it, if knowing that.
Oh,
you can't
if
get
I know I
refunds.
wasn't gonna get paid,
Yeah.
that happened to me once, a long time ago, and it's
Yeah,
not
right.
gonna happen again. You only need to get burned once to learn
you
less
know?
valuable lessons.
How do you know?
Well, just based on,
On general conversation.
the only people who are going to take money on the house sale are the mortgage, and if they have a second collateral mortgage on the house, and CRA. And those judgments are all online,
Where do you find those?
on property online.
Oh.
Yeah, to be registered on
Okay,
the
just
title,
something else.
but like, you know what I mean, like,
Yeah.
so
you'd know.
I would tell you a seller, so how it's gonna work is when the proceeds of the sale come in to the lawyer's office. The bank gets paid, well, I would say probably CRA, I think might even trump the bank. But CRA, the bank, and the lawyers taking their money, and then whatever's left over is getting sent out to the real estate agents.
Are there any red flags you watch for? Without having to specifically ask?
Well,
Or would it show up on property online?
that's, I mean, those are to me the debts, but again, finding out people's motivation and why they're selling
Yeah.
is gonna give me indication, right? Now, like, again, for instance, if it's a divorce, right? And then somebody's gonna mention like debts, splitting things up, you know, that type of thing. Like, so those would be probably clues, as far as things, but when it comes to numbers and sheets like that, it's not on the slideshow, I'm not your girl. I'll tell you about that.
I'll find a new girl.
I don't wanna get into people, like,
I don't either.
I don't wanna get into people's, like, I want to educate them, but I don't, like, again, so I would say on the flip side of a buyer, my biggest thing for my buyers, I want them pre-approved, right? So, but I always talk about their pre-approval number and where they wanna be. They can be pre-approved for 8. But I say to you, where do you want me to be looking? They're like, we wanna spend 6 to 650, cause we don't wanna be house poor. So that's what I'm gonna do with them, right?
Right.
Like, that's where I know that they can get that, and that's where they wanna be, so that's where I'm gonna keep them. They're gonna buy a 750 house. Might take a little while. Oh, look, affirmations. I am knowledgeable and caring and the best agent for these clients. They will appreciate my expertise and preparation and choose me to represent them as they sell their home. I definitely would say going to a listing appointment, I often think positive things in the sense of I am, and I know that's, but like if I am, like I said, gonna go up against someone who's got like this hot Instagram page, I'm gonna, and if the seller asks me, do I have a TikTok page? I'm out. Like, they are gonna throw me out the door. First of all, they probably wouldn't even call me because they don't have a TikTok page. But can I guide them in marketing strategy and, you know, getting their house sold and negotiating? For sure. I said, I'll put me up against anyone. And I would just say that confidently. And as an agent who's newer in the business, you can always leverage, I work for a company, we have 290 agents, you know, we're well established in the industry, and, you know, I'm gonna promote this listing to all my colleagues, you know, we all have access to the listings, right? But when it comes to that, as far as I'm gonna talk about, I always say you have 2 chances to make a first impression. The first is your online presence, and then your second is when someone walks through the front door. During COVID, my budget of listing, so my $150 photographer went up to $450 because I got Matterports done for everything because I felt it was absolutely necessary because we had people that were buying houses that couldn't even come and look at them, right? And I was dealing with that with both buyers and sellers. So that was just one of those things that I'm like, I gotta add this into my cost.
Did you continue with that? Bring it back?
I probably am like, I feel it out based on what it is.
Okay.
So like, for instance, now my Stonewater listings, we do photos and stuff like that. Maybe a video, but I don't do Matterports because
Right.
I do have the floor plans and stuff for it. Anyway,
What are your thoughts on drones?
I like drones.
Yeah.
I don't always do them, but it depends on what you need to show, right? How far they are from the water. Is it like I did one for the condo that I have listed because it has green space in behind it.
It's better, yeah.
Yeah.
The photography, the staging, all that kind of stuff, is that cost that you pass on to the seller, or that's included in your rate?
That's included in my rate. That's,
Okay.
to me, that's the cost of doing business.
Okay.
I've been paying for that stuff long before anyone was even like, there was only it was like less than 10% of people that were getting professional photos when I started doing it. Like, again,
Okay.
so I was ahead of the curve on. Am I having an HDTV video done with me showing the house? I'm not. Not that's well, I would stand at the front door, I guess, but anyway,
Yeah.
I don't. Cause it's not about me, but I don't want it to be about
Right.
me.
Right, so there's a certain quality that you will provide as part of your service. and If
Totally.
they wanna go above and beyond, then you can pass that cost on.
Well, that's a
Okay.
good question. Yeah.
And I know everybody has their own
It
style.
depends, I guess. Like I had, like I paid for an initial consultation with a stager. And so the clients had the stager go, and then the stager would offer like, I can come back and I can actually do these things for you, and this is what the cost, like she figured that out on theirs. Well, we had sellers that pushed back on that. And they're like, well, we really want her to come back, and it was like $200, and I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it for everybody, but I'm like, again, if I'm doing Matterport for one, and like, I like to have some consistency for how I things, but is it $1 million listing versus a $500,000 listing that I know is gonna sell in 3 days anyway, right?
Right.
Like, those are things that I would say, but I do have a standard.
Yeah.
And then I would say it would be depending on,
Do you know if there's many agents that do pass those costs on to their consumers? Because I'm wondering if that's something that you can use in your listing presentation when you're talking about commissions and stuff like that.
yeah, I
We're
could,
35%, but included in that is.
totally,
ABCD.
I guarantee you there's agents doing that
I've heard of agents having sort of a scale.
scale, yeah, so it's like
I do this.
a bronze, silver, gold package, right?
Yeah.
So that you would say, this is what I do for 6%, this is what I do for 5, and this is what I do for 4.5, right? And then they're, typically gonna pick the 4.5, but then you're like, oh, I gave them these ranges,
Yeah.
which you knew you were gonna do it for 4.5 anyway,
Right.
right? But then they feel like, oh,
They
they had some agency over it and they
Right.
give the options. But I would say to you, I would think that when I can tell that someone has had the house painted or renovations done to the listing previous, for sure they're passing that cost back to their clients.
The painting and the.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would make good business sense, not to.
I already talked about opportunities, the best thing ever, like, I think if you didn't, it's so easy, like, coming from me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. And then when we talked about, like, Sue, you had asked about training, there is so much training that you can do, like, there are videos. I mean, obviously, we don't have Jessica right now. Jessica was a huge resource. I tell people like that kwselect.ca website, like, oh my God, that is the best binder that we would have had a binder in our office of like all the things that can be done, listing packages. That template that I use for my it's called Let's Get Your House Sold. Lindsay created when I was, again, this would have been 15 plus years ago. Like she gave it out to everybody and I've been using that. So the kwselect.ca is like such a wealth of knowledge. Like there's literally everything that you need to know. And as I mentioned earlier, I believe part of our professional, like you're a professional. Like if I was a professional photographer, right, I'd want to be honing in on my skills, right? Like I would be taking courses every year. Like if I was a cake decorator, I'd want to get better at making cakes and learning new techniques. Like I think when they talk about your budgets and stuff like that, that whole number of like 10% of what you earn a year to put it into education, I'm going to argue that you're going to get that back tenfold in this business, especially. I mean, like, again, just doing sessions like this, like, is invaluable. It, like, a lot of the stuff recently I've been listening to because the MREA, and anyone who's a big agent at Keller Williams has read the MREA over and over and over. Every time you read it, you're at a different stage in your business and your life, and you pick up something different from it, right? But it's like, to me, it's like the little red Bible. Not because you're with Keller Williams, but because you're selling real estate. Like there's so many truths to that. I don't read as much anymore. Like I listen more to books. That's why now it's like podcasts and stuff like that. That's why I like the MREA podcast. Like that's my fave. And we talked about my, like the listing walkthrough. Genius, you know, again, writing a handwritten note. Thank you for letting me come into your home. You know, I hope we can work together, whatever you want. Like, great habit to build. Best habit you probably, and I've been saying this for 6, maybe 8 years. I do it sometimes and then I fall off and don't do it. Writing a handwritten note to your cooperating agent. Like, when was the last time you received a letter from another agent? I typically, and I 100%, but if I could get better, that would be, you'd get a handwritten note for me with a $10 Tim's card in it that says, thank you for doing this transaction with me. I really appreciate it. It was great doing business with you. Have your next copy on me. Like, that would make me feel warm and fuzzy if I got, people have given me nice things like that, and it makes me becoming a broker, makes it all worth it for a coffee. I don't think really this, this session isn't about the listing agreement and the paperwork. So I guess why you would talk to your broker as far as doing the paperwork and the listing. But again, it's how you do it, 1 phase, 2 phase. If you should be, you should have paperwork all prepared, especially if you don't have any listings yet. Like you should be listing your house, or you should go online and find a current listing and write it from the perspective of a buyer, write an APS. But take a property and wherever you live and list it, practice it. I think that's it.
Practice it with like web forums, you mean?
No, like take your house and list it. Do that this weekend. Put your house, go around, take the measurements, fill out your input form, talk about the things, like why we're practicing with them. It's the highest asset the majority of us have, right? So saying, oh my God, I'm going to write an offer. I've been out working with buyers and we saw a house that we saw this afternoon and they want to write an offer tonight. Like practice. That's my big thing. And the more you do something, the easier it gets. I'm telling my kids this, right? Shoot, oh, look, we're only at 10:15. We could chat a little bit. Can I just text my hairdresser to be like, what the?
Absolutely. I go get a.
If you are leaving tomorrow, I will not. Yes, yes, let's take a 5-minute break for sure.
Oh, it's one of those days.
Let me see. Ask questions 2575. These are my notes from last night. The advantage of the listings, marketing opportunities, getting leads. How long it takes. Job is to set expectations, set that. Meeting with seller. Introduction, build report. Why they're moving. So,
I think you've covered most of the basics.
it's good. How about my friends online? Does anyone have any questions? Who I got? I got Stacy, Cyril, and Cole. Are you guys even awake? Did I put you to sleep?
Yes, I'm awake. No, I don't really have any questions. No, it's all been good.
Cyril, tell me, I feel like the last couple sessions that I've been in, you've been in.
Yes.
Give me perspective from a newbie, how things are going on the learning curve.
Um, well, it's pretty steep when you it's daunting when you first start out because you really, I mean, it really has nothing to do with the exam that you wrote to get your license. It's completely different when it's real. And
Nothing.
it obviously you're nervous and you don't want to make mistakes and it takes some time. But one thing I have to say, I've never been involved with a company where learning is so forward. You know what I mean? Like it's unbelievable how much I've learned already, and the support is unreal. So it's been good, and so is this Ignite thing has been great too. Just even discussing ideas is always helpful.
That's amazing. And again, I agree with you as far as like, I mean, I would say I'm 18 years in and I'm still learning. However, I love learning. So I feel like there's always something more that I can learn. Again, I'm a relational person, so I feel like even, you know, teaching something like this, it's often said that if you want to learn about something or get better at something and you're asked to teach it, then do it. Like, again, sometimes I have imposter syndrome and, you know, I get asked to do this. I'm like, well, it's not like I list 50 houses a year. However, I do feel that, like, again, with real estate, both buyers and sellers, it's just about finding their motivation, right? Finding what they need. I'm not a believer in having like commission breath. So I don't work from that place of like, this is, and again, there's someone on that MREA podcast. I forget which one she was. She had said that. She said, you know, she got dumped in her first couple of years by a client. Because essentially the client could feel the pressure that she was putting on, the agent was putting on the client to buy, when it was more about the agent and what the agent wanted versus the client. Like, you know, if someone said to me, if a client said to me, they're like, oh, well, you just want me to pay the highest price because you get paid more commission. Like, I am so far from even thinking about that. Like, that is never, for me personally, an objective. Like, I don't think about, I mean, I know what, I mean, I obviously want to get paid, but I'm not gonna make a client pay more money if I don't think the value is there, because my motivation is what's best for my client. End of story. Because that will pay tenfold for you in this business. Like, I strongly believe that. I believe that even like when, you know, you talk about being the best cooperating agent, there is something to be said. And this for me is so valuable and so important, that if I was writing an offer with a buyer on a listing, and it's an agent that I've worked with in the past, and if that agent says to their client, yeah, I've worked with Susan before and she does a great job meeting her conditions, you know, this will be a serious client, she will have them pre-approved, like this will be a seamless transaction. That to me is all I strive for, to be honest. And that's a personal goal. Like, I'll go back to, I think, why I became a broker. It wasn't because I want to tell people what to do, because I don't. Like, you should all know what to do. However, helping people makes me happy. And if I can help people in our industry, especially people coming into the industry, realize the importance of our industry and what professionalism means and how we can do a really good job and how we can be portrayed by the public as good guys, I'm going to do that all day long. All day long. So thank you, Sarah, for sharing. I would say that I always joke because I'm like, nobody from another company ever calls me to ask me to come to any of the other companies. I'm like, nobody likes me. But I would put our company up against anybody when it comes to, especially when you're talking about coming in as a new agent, the fact that you have productivity coach options, you have a mentorship program, like Cyril's on a team. So to have Christine guiding you, that woman knows her stuff and she is going to keep people in line. You know, like having options to do this, being able to, you know, go to Vegas, like, and the learning and Like, honestly, like I still I was thinking about my son the other night, because I'm trying to work on 3 things you're grateful for before you go to bed. But what Jane said at the meeting, like that literally warmed my heart. As far as I want to work for a company where everyone shares and everyone wants to lift people up with them. Like, I'm in a group called Her Best Life. And that's what they talk about, because it's all about it's a women's group. But so the Empire Builders, they have a podcast. And their concept is like, we want to be really big and live big businesses and big lives, and we want to elevate and amplify other people that are doing it. So not stepping on people in this business to get a deal done. Like, I don't even understand the concept behind that, right? Especially when you talk about confrontation. Like, let's say we're talking about a listing agent and a buyer's agent, and well, the goal is like our Y24C2Ts, it's win-win. Like, you want your seller to find a house, you want your seller to sell the house, you want your buyer to buy a house. Like, why can't we all get along?
Yeah, we're not working against each other.
And we're not. And that's the other thing, like, I want to work for my client. However, I'm in an industry of people that I'm going to work with again and again. And my reputation to me is very important. Like, and I feel like we should all, care about one another. That's I know it sounds foo-foo, but I truly, truly believe that. Does anyone else have questions about the process as far as listing, what you're doing for listing the house? I mean, again, you can pick my brain based on what I do again, but I told you I am not a TikTok star, so I'm sure someone's going to do a session on that.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I know you said that you don't work with a lot of unknowns to you anymore, like strangers. What do you do when you come across somebody who's calling you to potentially list their place and they're asking you all the information that you're going to give them at a listing presentation, but they're asking the question on the phone? Are you comfortable answering those questions on the phone, or will you try to make an appointment to answer?
So the scripted answer is going to be like, get in front of them, right? Get to them. However, when we go back to me digging based on personalities, 2, like, are they just a highly detailed person, like, and they need all of the information? Or do I get the feeling that they've called 26 other agents and they, you know what I mean? Right? Like, so then I was totally transparent with you guys. And I said this, like, I am a cherry picker. Like, I like a challenge, but I also am going to do it if I feel that it's going to work out for me. Right? So you might as a new agent say, like, I want to get in front of them so that I can go there and I can give my spiel. And like, the saying goes, don't be married to the outcome. So if you don't get the listing, you're like, you can sharpen your skills, right?
Yes.
So I would say, however, like, can we sit down and talk for 30 minutes? Like, I'd be like, more pushback. I can give you my presentation. I can answer those questions. I would love to see your home, or, I'd love to meet you in person, like, so we can have a face-to-face conversation. That would be, I would think, because my thoughts are, if I can get in front of them, they're going to like me,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
And I can show them what I can do for them. I feel like it would raise my chances of getting the actual listing versus doing it over the phone.
I'm just anticipating people complain, and the first thing they ask is about commission, and suddenly you're at a race because you tell them the commission, and they're like, okay, all done.
So to be honest with you, 9 times out of 10, I'm not even going to do that. I'm not going to say, I'm like, I said, you're asking about commission and you haven't even heard services that I'm going to provide. Like,
Right.
Essentially you gotta know your value, right? And that's when they talk about your value proposition. And again, getting in front of someone can sell yourself
Yeah.
better. Right? It's like saying, again, I don't know, I've been married a long time, so I don't understand the swipe left, swipe right, but like, I'd rather go out for the date and have coffee before they ask, like, are you gonna put out at the end of it? But maybe that's what people do, are direct to the point, but back in my day, it was just like, oh yeah, to be face to face before we could have those discussions.
Okay, does that really
Like, I
happen?
don't know what kind of car do you drive and how cute are you?
I don't know if it goes from coffee to are you gonna put out? I'm just saying.
I'm from Cape Breton, so usually. it was
Oh, right,
beer.
okay, never mind. Stand
Yeah.
down. Okay.
Yeah. Anyone else online have any questions? Cole, are you there? Or you just got it on and so I can say that I taught 6 people? No, it's not. He's at the gym working out. He just signed in to get the credit that he was here. Stace, what about you?
I am here, and yeah, no, I think I'm good with everything so far. Yeah.
What if I asked you to do a video on today's session? How would that go?
A video on today's session?
Yeah, because I watch you and Shelly doing all your videos.
Yeah, I could do that. We could do that
Yeah.
for sure.
I don't want you to do it. I just say, if you were to do it, where would you say Cole's notes of what you've learned?
Well, I did tune in a little late, so I missed a little bit at the beginning here, but yeah, I could definitely yeah, I think it's just showing your value, getting in front of the client, and I haven't had any listings as of yet, and I'm heading into my end of my first year, so it's been a little bit of a frustrating first year.
Do you know what though? I would tell you, like, I guarantee you, let's break it down and let's interview agents who've been in this business for a long, long time. The majority of us start working out with buyers. That's just, it's.
Yeah,
kind of
and
how
that's
it
what I was
goes.
told. And
For
I mean, I've listed
sure.
a couple properties. My problem is I've been moving around so much myself. I sold my house. I bought a lot in the valley, rented. Then we decided the valley wasn't for us, so now I sold a lot. Now I just bought a house in Chester. I don't stay in one place long enough, so people are starting to think I'm in the witness protection program. So I gotta settle somewhere and really hit the ground running, I think. But hopefully this will be a turnaround year.
So, and like I said, earlier, and I don't know if you were here that, I would say if anyone was to ask me what I think you need in real estate, it's grit, right? There's a lot of it literally is like a roller coaster, the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows. So developing good habits, like, and doing training stuff like this, like, it's not an easy gig. And I don't care if there's someone out there who tells you it is, they're lying. This is not an easy gig. Every realtor on January says, oh my God, how am I going to do what I did last year? They do. Like, now, whether they've got systems in place and they're confident with their systems and they've got, their funnel and they know, but we all are like, how are we gonna do this again? Like, oh yeah, this was my GCI, this is how many units I did. It's like, and on Keller Williams, like, you can track that, right? It's all there. They do that for you. I can look at my multi-year trends and I can look at my numbers and stuff. But
Yep.
if there's an agent who says to you that they don't think that in January, like, they're lying.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue has been, and it's been frustrating because I see some of these agents on their posts on social media that have just been licensed like last month, and they have buyers they're dealing with, or they're working with a seller. And I'm like, oh my, but my biggest issue, I think, is before I started, I don't have a massive sphere. I moved from Ontario 5 years ago. And honestly, I spent the first 4 years here in the woods hiking. I never met a lot of people. I don't have a big social sphere. So that is huge. And I didn't realize how much that would hurt me until I started working.
I'm I'm gonna push back on you, because you can, again, you can talk to some agents that do big businesses and don't know anybody. Like one of my spiels that I would say to you is, if I was giving advice to develop some thick skin, you are gonna get burnt more by family and friends in this business than you are complete strangers. So I still would, I would push back on that in the sense that, like, I guarantee you, if you interviewed sellers, they didn't necessarily pick the realtor because they're their best friend or their cousin. They picked them because they're knowledgeable, or like, again, providing value. Again, that's where, like, I'm gonna lose out to you because you're doing more videos and you're providing value. And, you know, that's building a rapport with people.
Yeah, I
Isn't
think
it
one
just-
thing too that's critical, like I always wrestle with, and I don't know about anybody else, is how do you, when I see all these other agents who are much more experienced, have 20 years under the belt, and they're promoting, oh, I won this award, I won that award, and I've so many people, so I sold another home in your area. When you're new and you don't have any of those things behind you, it's really hard to go out, like, because I sometimes question, well, why would you want to hire me when I literally have no experience whatsoever? I know I lean on the whole KW team and I say, listen, I got all these amazing, talented agents behind me. The brokers here are fantastic. So I kind of go that route. But it's nice now, at least I have I already have 3 5-star reviews. So I kind
Yeah.
of push that a lot. So it's slowly starting to get there. But it's hard at first when you don't have any of that, for sure.
Yeah, I would say to you, that's probably just, again, a block that it definitely can be overcome, because again, I think providing value and providing knowledge, like there's probably people who've been in the industry for 15 years who haven't been in a training room in the last 10, right? So what are they learning about the industry, right? Other
Yeah,
than your
it's funny
mandatory course.
because when I moved here from Ontario, we used a realtor, and I'm not going to mention his name. He's a super, super nice guy. But I got to say, he was the worst realtor I've ever experienced dealing with. And I bought and sold 15 homes back in Ontario. And he's one of the most successful realtors in Nova Scotia.
I'm being
And
recorded, so I'm not gonna say everything, but I would say that, I am gonna say, there are people who can walk, but can they chew bubble gum at the same time? I'm not quite sure, and that is the thing with this business. It is for sure. I bet you we could play that little game of quietly in a corner by ourselves to say, like, look at this person and how much business they do, and how they don't have a personality or are not good with systems. And so I would say to you all is just come from a place of learning, right? Like, it was always, I tell people, like, if you were meeting with me for coffee and say, hey, how's real estate? Tell me like, I'm always going to shoot real with people. Like, again, that whole concept of people think we all put a for sale sign on the front lawn and we all make $1 million, and it's so easy to do. When I got into the business, I remember NSAR gave the stats, and I say it was like, after the first year, 75-76% were out of the business. After the second year, it was 85%. And after 5 years, there was less than 10% in the business. So my goal when I got in was like, I need to make it a year. And then I need to make it 2 years. And then my goal was to make it 5 years. There's only one person on my course that is still, I don't know if she's still licensed. She does admin work for one of our agents here. So I don't even know if she's still selling, but the other 24, 25 people, long gone, and have been gone for years. That's what I say when I think about describing the grit that you need in this business. And I saw on the Facebook page, the NSR closed Facebook page, an agent said he was selling this lockbox the other day. And he said, I'm getting out. It's my 39th year. I couldn't make it to the 40th. Like, I didn't want to make it to the 40th. And everyone's saying, congratulations and all the best in your retirement. And he was like, we didn't even have a fax machine in our office when we got into business. And we didn't have internet on our phones when I got in the business. Like I went into the office to check my emails, right? So I have seen a lot of changes. I went to a training that Stefan Swinnapole had done in Ottawa, and he said, real estate and technology is like a moving train. And if you don't get on the train, you are going to get left behind. So that's why I would say, keep training, keep learning. Like it's to me, the best thing you can do. And it's the 80-20 rule they talk about, but I would say, I would guarantee you, and I don't run the numbers for NSAR, but I would say Laura Lee would have those numbers. But I would say 90% of the business is done by 10% of the agents. You know, so whether, and Ontario numbers are bonkers, like how many agents they have, like they have 1 million agents. And like you look at the average, you know, I think of this, even the stats for Korea would be like 4 deals is an average for an agent in real estate a year. So I'm like, just figure out what you need. I've always said that there's a piece of the pie that I want and what I need to fill my life and my numbers, and go and get that. And I would and this has all been talked about. I would tell you again, MREA podcast, Jason Abrams podcast, I would say, if you're driving and you like podcasts, then you could go back to Think Like a CEO. I am on 20%er email, so you can go 20%er.com, you can sign up for that. That's Jay Papazan, he sends it out every Friday. It's just a 2 to 3 minute. But I learned so much from those stuff. And like I don't know if any of you went to see Jason when he was here. He literally talked about the playbook that we have now. Just figure out what works for you. So I would say, Chase, like hikers, you could form a group of people who like to hike. And let's say you have 15 to 20 people and you do 2 or 3 deals out of that group every year. Like, wouldn't that be worth it? A, you're doing something you love to do. And 2, you're getting clients that know, like, and trust you, and referrals from those people.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the plan, and that's something Jason said to me after his. He was amazing, by the way. Absolutely, was blown
Talk to
away.
you? Oh my God, I'm so
Yeah,
jealous.
I know. I
Keep
cornered him
going.
down in the hallway, and he basically, because so much of what you're taught is, you know, work your funnel, work your sphere, and I said to him, like, what about a lot of the things? Either take money, which a new realtor doesn't have, or take a massive sphere, which I don't have. What do you suggest? And he, you know, he said, what are you into? And I told him, and he said, listen, don't be a real estate agent that hikes, be a hiker who sells real estate, and just do what you love to do, and you're going to get all your sales through that. And he actually gave some real tangible ideas that you could put into work. Like one of the things was the SPCA videos I do. That was an idea I got through him. I'm a massive animal lover, dog lover. And honestly, I get most of my likes and most of my feedback and comments from those videos. Out of anything else I do, those get me the most traction.
So what if I challenged you, and this is a challenge because this is my goal. So if I said to you, 555, every day you called 5 people, you emailed or private messaged 5 people, and you went on Facebook and commented on 5 people's posts. Like, if that's all you needed to do every day, you'd be blown away. Stacey, are you listening to his podcast?
No, I haven't listened to it. I should.
I swear to you, I'm gonna challenge all of you. Like, I'm going to family reunion. I'm gonna give you 2 weeks, and please, like, I hold my breath till Monday. But like, I challenge you guys all to listen to 3 or 4 of them. And if you can't come back to me, send me an email and tell me you didn't learn something from what he said. Like, it is so basic and so practical. He's interviewing people who are doing everything at a high level. So he just did James Shaw. Is everyone part of the Pivot Facebook group? There's like 160,000. Pivot Shift Facebook group. So you should do that. You should also, one of my things that I love is I'm a big fan of Aaron Kaufman. So Aaron is KW Mastermind Profit Share. He's drops lots of nuggets and wisdom. And that podcast. And I would say to anyone who wanted to, if you can look now, they've been doing it since COVID. So the Empire Builders. So, and they've got their podcasts based on, they're women that chitter chatter and get like back and forth, but they talk about everything real estate. Like you can find, if you wanted to talk about lead conversion or like building your sphere, they've got an episode for everything. So those are my nuggets that I would give everyone, and I would,
PW Mastermind Profit Share.
yeah, Aaron Kaufman, AARON Kaufman, yeah. He actually so Aaron has started doing podcasts, and Aaron interviewed Ronnie Birmingham last week. So Ronnie is who started our office, and he's now the OP over in Newfoundland. He's moved to Newfoundland. So Ronnie's a good friend of mine, and he did an amazing job. So I would say you should watch that too, just to hear the KW OG, like our story. Yeah. So if no one else has any questions, thank you everyone for your time. As my kids would say, please.
Hold
please
on,
give a
hold on.
5
Can I ask a question? Actually, can I ask 2 questions?
Yep, please give a like, what did they say? Like and share and like my post and 5-star rating review. Cause my YouTube kids, whatever they're talking about, just kidding. Go ahead, Cyril.
Okay, 1, I need the name of the first podcast you told us to listen to.
This is so funny. I love when people do this because I just spew things. I don't even know what I said. So the MREA Real Estate Agent Podcast. So that's Jason Abrams who's doing that. I have listened to every episode, and the ones I've liked, I've listened to 2 and 3 times.
MRVA?
MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, like the
Okay.
rental. And
Okay.
then Gary Keller and Jay Papasan do Think Like a CEO. This is gonna be me. Like, again, one of the reasons that I love Keller Williams so much, I love the philosophy behind how the head of Keller Williams think. Like Keller Williams, and again, I get a lot of this because I listen to the leaders doing stuff. The philosophy that Gary Keller has is you shouldn't be transactional as a realtor, which the majority of us are, right? It's like, that whole concept of living paycheck to paycheck. Real estate should fund your life based on whatever you want your life to be. And they want you to think about the bigger picture and what it can provide. And again, he talks a lot, again, if we could get into talking about profit share and how that's, a passive income, investing in real estate, how that can bring you wealth. So I love the way they think, and that's why I could listen to Mark King or Jason Abrams all day long, because again, yeah. So I would say those podcasts for sure. And then the other one was the Empire Builders. So it's Wendy Papasan, Sarah Reynolds, who's the biggest female. She has the biggest female-led real estate team in Keller Williams. Seychelle Van Poole, and now they've got Kimber Mankini and Tiffany Fikes.
Okay, now
Empire Builders?
Shoot, Cyril, shoot. Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say my second question, and we do not have to name names, Dave. My second question is, I think this gentleman may live next door to me, and I think his initials may be IA.
You guys
Hi.
should text. You should text afterwards.
If those are his initials, then that's not the guy.
Okay, all right.
Now I know where you live, Cyril.
Yes, you do.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Susan.
I'll have lots more stuff that I'll be spewing if you want to find me after I've slept a little bit when I get back from Vegas in a week, because again, I'll have lots of great ideas. If you have the opportunity, I think Erin said at the meeting that she's streaming the state of the company. Like, it is a big deal. If you look at how Gary, first of all, and I told you this, like, I'm not a numbers person, like Gary breaks that things down and I would challenge anyone that whatever really happens in the US always trickles to our market, right? When it's a high sellers market there, it's a high sellers market here. Like, so if you have an opportunity to watch that, now whether you come in live, they usually have those things, I think, put on KW Connect like after family reunion, but it's really, really worth watching to see. Like, he's literally got economists, he's got Ruben on his team and he'll be up speaking. Like, these guys study the real estate market. They study real estate trends. Like, they know what's going on. And it helps provide huge insight. All right, everyone. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
My God, I gotta get my hairdresser. She's texting me. This is
Oh, hopefully you can get in with you.